Future Commerce is brought to you by Octane AI. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to leverage more customer data and increase your revenue at your brand? The answer should be yes and yes. And with Octane AI, every Shopify and Shopify Plus merchant can do just that. Learn about your customers and collect buyer profile data with engaging quizzes and create personalized campaigns and flows using Facebook Messenger and SMS. Octane AI has plans for any sized business, and Future Commerce listeners get 10% off your first 6 months. So go sign up right now at octaneai.com/future. That's octaneai.com/future. Future Commerce is brought to you by ShipBob. Put your logistics on autopilot. Go to shipbob.com/futurecommerce and get started today with $500 in free shipping credits. Future Commerce is brought to you by Blue Shift. 77% of consumers make brand choices based on personalized experiences. Here's my question: are they choosing you? Well, Blue Shift allows e-commerce companies to move from batch and blast and one-size-fits-all experiences to something much more custom. You can find out more today about what Blue Shift does for your brand at blueshift.com/futurecommerce. That's blueshift.com/futurecommerce. Hello and welcome to Future Commerce, the podcast about the next generation of commerce. I'm Philip, and here, hot off a Series E, clocking in at $200 million, it's Mr. Casey Armstrong, the CMO of ShipBob. Welcome to Future Commerce for the first time.
Yes, thank you. It's great to see you here.
Yeah, great to see you too. And we've been partnered up for a few months, and we've been working together, ShipBob and Future Commerce, and hopefully building something really lasting together. I know that you've helped sponsor a bunch of content that we've put together recently, but that's not why you're here today. You're here because I pinged you on Twitter and said, "Come talk about the raise and tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing going into this new infusion of capital."
Perfect. Where should I start?
What are you going to do with it?
What are we going to do?
You're flush with cash.
The overarching theme, I'd say there's two overarching themes, and then I can get into some specifics. It's really continuing to invest heavily in product and operations, and when we really view them as the same. What's been interesting, with ShipBob versus, let's say, pure software, is with the operational element, it's like this a whole other dimension that you need to take into consideration. It's not just a pure software problem, which is fun to solve and attack. And that's why there's such an opportunity for our customers and for us. And the other overarching theme is really fast and affordable and reliable shipping. That's why people come to us in the first place. And that's what we need to provide for brands of all sizes. Whether you're just getting started or you're doing, 100 million plus in revenue, get that Amazon level, fulfillment experience. And so for us, a handful of areas that we're really focusing on is international. So we just recently launched our first fulfillment center in Australia. So that will give us 4 locations overseas. So Canada, Ireland, the UK, and Australia. And so we'll be expanding very quickly internationally. In Q3, we'll add probably at least 2 more international locations and maybe a third in Q4. It's still TBD. Another area is really omni, and I'm using that term somewhat loosely. So it's not just platforms and channels, but really our integrations across the board. So we have our own app store where we integrate with solutions across the board, and happy to dive into that. It's a area that I'm rather passionate about. And then another big area is B2B, and so the company is really founded on direct to consumer, but we've always had B2B components, whether it's B2B or B2B2C. From a fulfillment standpoint, but it's interesting to see these customers evolve so much earlier in their life cycle and get into retail or get into different omni-channel solutions that look like B2B so much sooner. And so we know that's a must-have for our customers across the board.
So it's not just growing in capabilities, or sort of like reaching what I think has sort of been not just meeting this need of this underserved market of more operations or more logistics infrastructure capability that's lighting up every day across North America. It's also like channel development. It's going outside of just the core, B2C e-commerce consumer and the logistics operations that serve that. Is that
exactly? That's one of the, I'd say, most enjoyable parts of working at these fast-growing, e-commerce enablement or infrastructure companies is, for a long time, it's okay, we're going to do one thing really well, and let's say that's direct-to-consumer fulfillment. And that's out of one facility. Then that's out of two. And next thing you know, you're at 4 or 5 facilities and it's in North America and things are going well. But you need to start branching off into all these other areas very quickly. And so that gets into Omni, that gets into B2B, that gets into international. There's a lot of other stuff that's in our roadmap that we'll be launching this year and next year that we'll be pushing out shortly. But it's, you keep adding these kind of other business units within the organization. Like for us, we have a whole nother business unit that's focused solely on these customers that are just getting started. And so how do we help you if you're at 0 or let's say $250,000 in revenue, really graduate to that next level? What's that look like? How can you get onboarded as easy as you would like a pure software solution? And so just continuing to open up different channels and business units to support the overall mission of the company.
There's some confusion because there's so many software tech SaaS platforms in the space. There's sort of this confusion of like where in the ecosystem. And by the way, when I say confusion, I mean the confusion is mine. Where in the ecosystem, some folks with ship in their name are trying to go like direct to the direct to consumer brand, and they are like a rate calculation solution. And then there's others who are trying to enable the actual like warehouse ops and warehouse management piece. They also have ship in their name. I think no matter where you sit in the spectrum, there is the opportunity in the marketplace to try to be the other thing, right? You try to grow more, to try to become more ubiquitous and to try to get grab a larger piece of the pie, because there is so much, I think, white space here for you to grab up. Why B2B? If there's so many other places that need solving and along the customer journey and the CX of logistics, it seems like going to B2B seems like a different kind of challenge to solve.
Yeah, so I'll get to B2B in a second. So I'm glad you called out there's ship asterisk, like ship fill in the blank. You can pick whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like go to GoDaddy and try to buy something after the word ship and they're probably all taken. So anyways, so at ShipBob, we are, a full service fulfillment platform. And so you would ship us your inventory and, we will fulfill things across, across the world. Then there are companies like, let's say ShipBob, which is, a great solution to print labels if you're fulfilling yourself, or they're actually a very close partner of ours where we leverage their software and technology and partnerships as a shipping API component to make sure that we are always getting the best rates. And so we partner with them closely on that. And so again, you can use them standalone or a company like ShipBob will use them. And then there are other solutions that are, like you mentioned, powering what's happening in the fulfillment centers. And so those are called a warehouse management system or WMS. Those are much needed if you're going to run, a strong fulfillment center or warehouse that's standalone, or maybe you have a couple of them. We built our own WMS, and so that's 100% ShipBob. But again, there's another area for that. And so there are a lot of different shipping solutions, and it's tough. I totally understand, like, for merchants to understand, like, what the heck is the difference between all of these? But I'm glad you brought that up, so I could just kind of explain where we sit in the space and why there is such a need for all these other solutions. And then with B2B, you're right. Like, we could just focus on D2C until the end of time. But what so many of these customers, these merchants, these sellers want is they want one solution. They want one stop. And they want that for a lot of reasons. They just want to drop in their inventory and say, it's just as easy as, like you sign up for Shopify. You don't want to use a different Shopify for people in Australia to be able to see your content, or people in the UK or people in North America. You just want to say, cool, this is my store, and allow people to view and transact. And so we want the same to be here. And so whether that be international or that be B2B, and B2B is such a, I don't know, vague's the right right
Mm-hmm.
word, but like it's a vague term because it's like there's you scratch slightly below the surface, and like there's so much to unpack. And I mentioned earlier B2B and B2B2C, and so that means like let's say you sell in Target, and so we could ship your goods to Target, or maybe to a Target distribution center, and they distribute it to like multiple locations. Or there's Target.com, and so you place that order in Target.com or Walmart.com, and then that order would come from ShipBob. And so that's more B2B2C because we're shipping a single order to the end consumer, not
Correct.
in bulk to a Walmart.
There's just so many. It's much the same problem that you have when you say e-commerce, because e-commerce means a lot of things, right? And there's various flavors of transacting in online. So yeah, there's these sort of nebulous terms, and the thing that I keep coming back to is this growing concern in logistics of growing brands who are having to find ways to to move out of their bedroom, right? Or we're seeing explosive growth for a lot of brands in the space. Depending on when you're listening to this, that could be imperiled by things like, I don't know, IDFA and whatever else is the challenge at the moment. But you have these companies that are that are growing rapidly. They're looking to take fulfillment and take it to the next level. And there seems to be some other resource constraint in the ecosystem around commercial real estate development and just plain old, just like, where do I even go to forget the my international expansion, but I have to take these ops out of house and I have to send it somewhere anyway. And I see a lot of that sort of coming online. There was a story in the Palm Beach Post here where I live around this sort of laggard CRE work that's happening. It's a lot of it's coming online in the next 6 months, and now we could be facing a surplus of e-commerce logistics in a space that typically isn't where you put e-commerce inventory in South Florida, right? So these are all interesting. These are all interesting conversations that I feel like you probably have some insight into. And how much of that are you touching with these expansion plans? Outside of international.
Well, South Florida is an interesting location because out of all the major metropolitan areas, you can get 2-day ground coverage from just a handful of locations, like, relatively easily. Like a lot of our customers will split between, let's say, Southern California, the Northeast, and let's say Illinois or Texas.
Sure.
And they can almost get, 95% plus 2-day coverage ground. Except the biggest gap or miss is in Southern Florida. It's just tough to get to. And so I can't speak specifically for like the real estate market in Southern Miami or Southern Florida. And so we'll see what happens there. Overall, the market's just been insanely hot for industrial, and we'll see if there's like an overcorrection. Amazon wasn't even able to rent or buy as much as they wanted last year because there was so much competition. It'll be interesting to watch like the Prologis earnings calls and see what they're saying as well. They're one of, if not the biggest player in the space for industrial real estate. So it's definitely a fascinating space to be in. I have some friends here in Southern California that have bought some stuff out that was pretty east, and they were getting laughed at for a couple of years, and now they're definitely the ones holding the cards and laughing at everybody else, just because the demand is so high and there's very, very little supply from raw dirt to the actual buildings. Something you mentioned also, though, with like competition with some of these brands, and as they go, they sell B2B and sell elsewhere, as kind of a bit of a tangent, but that I find that I love to see is, with these companies, like we mentioned, Shopify, or let's say a BigCommerce allowing people to sell much easier online, or ShipBob trying to make it much easier to just grow a business with a few people because you outsource all of your fulfillment, which is very like time and, just time intensive. Is now there's so many more brands. And so the competition is off the charts there as well. And then you look at the costs of Facebook and some of the changes, like what's happening with like Facebook and Apple. And so these brands are forced to get very creative and innovative. And so that's one of the things I love most about the space is how these brands just adapt really quickly, and just different from softwares popping up to allow them to like cross-sell to just different partnerships. Again, whether it works well or not, people are definitely trying new stuff. Like I saw CrossNet and Black Wolf, they launched some
Mm-hmm.
partnership the other day because just there's a strong overlap with like their ideal customers, and just that kind of stuff we're going to continue to see pop up more and more during the summer. I know that there is the name, image, likeness, or NIL stuff with the NCAA and the athletes there. And
Yep.
there's just a lot of brands that are doing some interesting stuff there. I think that's kind of a slippery slope. So we'll see what plays out between NIL and the NCAA. But just the innovation and how creative these entrepreneurs are, because it's really sink or swim. They've got all their money and everything invested, and time and reputation, and invest in these companies. And so again, it's going to be an interesting Q3 and of course Q4. Q4 is always a wild ride.
That's the one. We and thank you for. I think you corrected me there. I said commercial real estate's industrial. We have an interesting. Speaking of Black Wolf, Sam, I believe, is a frequent visitor to South Florida, and another friend of the show helps out over at Black Wolf. A guy, Jake from Tillinger, is a part of our community down here, and there's a lot of conversation there too around sort of owning the experience, and sort of these small entrepreneurs who think that part of the experience and part of their hustle really is that their personal brand is wrapped up in their in the actual like front end and CX piece. Having part of my day job is understanding the end to end of CX, and that a lot of loyalty hinges on your ability to deliver a product at the end of the day. Very few people will buy from you again if it takes 3 weeks to get a product to your door, depending on what what it is you're selling anyway. And so a lot of that is. I think there's a lot of this concept of, as you grow and you sort of graduate, part of owning the experience is coming to an inflection point when you're, I would say when you're going out of the 250 million band, is how much do you then decide to bring back in house, or when do you start to decide that part of owning the experience requires you to be owning the operations of delivery? Do you think that is a relevant conversation at all to be having yet, or is this do brands actually graduate like that anymore? Because I think a lot of that, just you see a lot of this step getting skipped via M&A into big, large CPGs who probably have that solved to some degree.
There are companies that graduate or that have very edge case needs. One of our goals is to continue to build this solution that, again, works for people that are just getting started, to that can scale up, like I mentioned, with international B2B, so you don't have to look elsewhere. There's, I don't know if it was Allbirds or Adams that would send you 3 pairs and you could return 2.
Yeah, Adams,
that is a logistical nightmare. And so, or maybe that's their opportunity. And so that's something that I know that they built in-house. You did mention things like customization. So I didn't mention that earlier. I mean, that's another huge focus area for us, is because that's necessary. What gets, the cliche, what gets, as close to 100% open rate as anything, it's actually people opening the package that they bought from you. And so you want to have that level of customization you're looking for, whether you're doing it yourself or outsourcing it. It can be more expensive. And so you need to be thoughtful there. One of my, a brand that I love and does a great job of the unboxing experience is Love Every, but they also charge a price point that allows them to offer that level of customization. And so if you're selling, let's say, whatever, $29 sunscreen, or like a lower average order value item or items, you might not have that luxury, but there's still ways you could incorporate maybe some level of customization to continue to build your brand.
There's a lot of truisms that I hear, or sort of the same tactical advice over and over that you get on the before the buy box, right? There's like a conversion rate optimization. How many people are not talking about the things that you sort of test for, for customer experience and uplift for everything that happens after the buy box? Is that something that you guys are thinking about and focused on and helping brands improve to make primary and secondary packaging experiences better, and how do you become as because that's usually an ops team role, right? It's not a CX demand gen role. So are there things to be learned from demand gen side that happen in ops that can help drive loyalty?
Definitely. So it is Ship Scout. They're an interesting app out there which offers shipping A/B testing, and that's just an example of maybe test to change your operations. If you're doing it yourself, is often much harder than, let's say, A/B testing something from like a CX perspective or UX perspective on the website. So that could be an option. Something you mentioned earlier is around the buy box, and people will. I think this is pretty fascinating. It's core to just really the catalyst of ShipBob is people would be able to check out like Amazon style on their website, whether it be through a PayPal or Apple Pay, one click, or Shop Pay, and what Stripe's been able to roll out there, and just get these really like fast checkout experiences, both desktop and mobile, of course. But then they would get this Amazon level experience on the website, and then like you said, it would take whatever 2 weeks to get there, and that's just a very disjointed experience. And so again, I think that there are ways you can test that higher up in the funnel on the demand gen side to see, is this if we offer these better solutions, can it improve our click-through rate, our conversion rates, and then we can invest in there? Because it's so easy for me to say, of course you should offer free 2-day shipping, because I'm the biggest, both myself and your customers are the biggest winners there, but that costs money. And so you need to make sure where is the right trade-off on that front.
It's so funny because we had Jack DeFuria from Parade on the show back in October, and he said a few things that I feel like I've now cited him 3 or 4 shows in a row, so he wins some kind of an award.
Yeah, he
does. They said a couple things that really stood out to me. One is they see themselves like more of a fabric innovation platform than anything else, much more akin to say like Lululemon. And a lot of what they do is sort of just-in-time manufacturing. It's what allows them to do like this really like mind-blowing colorways, style, silhouette, like just this incredible diversity of the kind of products. I mean, their SKU count is insane. If you were to just add it all up, not offering everything all at one time, but having bought from them a few times myself, because I prefer a high-rise thong, like any, I'm sure you do too. But having ordered from them a few times, the shipping times are quite long. My question to him was why, and as well as shipping direct from China, right? Like it's being manufactured, it's coming direct, right? It's like getting to my door via, another country. Is that not to get you to weigh in on their strategy so much, but at a certain price point, I think you can forgive that, right? $7, $8, $9 a pair, like it's okay, I think, probably. Is that becoming normalized? Do you think we're relaxing our expectations around price point? And do our expectations sort of scale up linearly or exponentially the more that we pay? And maybe there's a couple questions hidden in there, but I don't want to like overload you. I think that is an interesting logistics innovation, but I think it toys with the expectation that a customer should get something in a few days' time, and that's just not the case.
I haven't seen any swing towards longer shipping speeds. Again, they have a different business. They have, like you mentioned, they have an extremely large catalog SKU wise, which adds so much complexity to a business. Again, it also gives them an opportunity, and they're doing, rather well themselves. Shipping direct from China, I mean, that's not innovation. That's really like how drop shipping's been. I used to hear that a lot more a couple of years ago, and been seeing a lot of brands do that less and less. And so again, they have a large catalog and they're doing something right. And so hats off to them.
Sure.
With just in time, I'm not going to get into the pros and cons of that too in depth, but because it's necessary for you to run your cash flow. But we're seeing a lot of the struggles with that right now, where so many merchants can't even sell right now or sell their full catalog because stuff is stuck overseas. And that's because of, raw material shortages and increases in prices there. That's because, there's a boat shortage, and also all the ports are clogged internationally and domestically, especially in Southern California. And so just to even get stuff landed in the US and to your house or to your fulfillment center is tough. And so, just like everything in business, you have to weigh like the pros and cons. Does it make sense for them to buy everything in advance and ship it over here and offer a much better, shipping and fulfillment experience, while taking a massive hit from a cash flow perspective and maybe sitting on a lot of like dead inventory at the end of the day, versus saying, hey, we will just ship from China. And if there's a delay, there's a delay. Again, that's something that every company needs to balance. It's just, there are risks and rewards, just like with everything. And actually, something I did want to mention too, on the question you mentioned earlier on how do you balance like demand gen and ops. There's actually, I was talking to a customer of ours about a month ago, and something that they said that I thought was really interesting. It shows kind of like the evolution in these brands. Actually, I've been seeing a pretty interesting shift I've seen lately is a lot of these brands, their first hires won't be a marketer. It's more of like an ops person to start because they know the importance of that. And with marketing, a lot of these founders, that's what they're good at, or they'll use, the outsource, use a company like Marketer Hire, something like that to scale. But what this woman said that was pretty fascinating was how they started modifying their manufacturing process and like the size and the materials that they'd use to reduce the size and the weights to make sure that they fit within different like dimensional weight thresholds, because your fulfillment costs are more or less based off of dimensional weight and your shipping zones. And so you can solve the shipping zones by distributing your inventory, but how do you modify the dimensional weight? And so again, she started modifying how they created the product so that they could get a lower dimensional weight while still selling more or less the same item. And then that either could put could put more money into her pocket at the bottom line. She could reduce her costs at the top, or the purchase price for the customers, which will improve her conversion rate. Or she could use those cost savings to provide a better shipping experience. And so it just gave her a lot of optionality, which is great. And again, this is something I think a lot of these e-com sellers will eventually evolve to, which is, okay, cool, I've hacked Facebook or whatever channel they're trying to. Where's their opportunity? And so I thought it was pretty creative on her part.
Hey, Philip here to tell you about our newest sponsor, Octane AI. If you are on Shopify or Shopify Plus, and who isn't, am I right? Then you need what Octane AI has to offer. I am a huge fan of guided selling, and Octane AI has tools that allow you to get to know your customers on a deeper level and collect more buyer profile data. And what does that mean? Well, it means that you can use things like shop quizzes, Facebook Messenger, SMS, and opt-in tools to allow you to engage your customer more personally so you can get on their level. More personalized campaigns and flows across all channels means more ROI. And that ROI that is driven from Octane AI is usable in other platforms with their integrations to other tools you're already using. Brands have already seen incredible results, up to 16x increase in email signups and a 28% increase in AOV. That's average order value, money in your pocket. What are you waiting for? Octane AI has plans for any sized business, and Future Commerce listeners get 10% off the first 6 months when you sign up. So why don't you sign up today? Go to octaneai.com/future. Once again, that's octaneai.com/future, and tell them Philip sent you. Hey, I just want to jump in here and tell you about our new partner, ShipBob. Let me ask you a question. Do you want to grow your e-commerce business by 1,200%? Well, of course you do. But before you tell me that that's impossible, let me tell you about ShipBob. They are a premium 3PL that offers a global fulfillment network, best-in-class technology, and reliable customer support. And here's a real-life merchant story. When Andrea Lisbona, the founder and CEO of the hand sanitizer brand Touchland, partnered with ShipBob, she was amazed by how fast and seamless ShipBob's pick, pack, and ship process really is, even as her business grew 1,200% in a matter of weeks. So outsource fulfillment to ShipBob and watch your business grow in a scalable way. Go to shipbob.com/futurecommerce to get started with $500 in free shipping credits. That's shipbob.com/futurecommerce and get started today. It's time once again for me to tell you about our newest partner, Blue Shift. Channel centric, siloed, batch and blast, one size fits all. These are the words no marketer likes to use and no campaign that your customers want to be a part of. So why do these campaigns still happen? Why? Well, disconnected data and disjointed technology. Blue Shift's Smart Hub CDP connects data and creates personalized omni-channel experiences for leading brands like James Allen and CarParts.com. Blue Shift provides catalogs for AI-driven product recommendations, advanced predictive segmentation capabilities, and creates custom audiences for your first-party data to leverage across almost any media platform so that you, the marketer, can make batch and blast a thing of the past. Learn more at blueshift.com/futurecommerce and get your copy of the Smart Guide to Product Recommendations for e-commerce and retail for free. That's right. Go to blueshift.com/futurecommerce. I think probably a skill that is one that's cultivated by working in the business and not necessarily having the hard to acquire that skill through like a guru course, right? Where this is a thing that we're all sort of challenged with is as long as I've been doing e-commerce, which is since 2003, sooner, but let's just call it 2003 because I'm old now. But for all the time that I've been in it, and I spent 10 years working for direct to consumer startups, there's the world has changed so very much. We're still in its infancy, really. I mean, it's near 100% employment. To get anyone with any sort of skill set, you sort of have to recruit away. It's marketing skill sets are hard enough to hire for. Operations, I feel like, is that much higher of a bar, and I feel like there's less and less of a sense. And maybe this speaks to sort of some of the startup names you dropped earlier around Stripe and some others. Is that really it's hard to suss out what an operator's capabilities are and what they could do specifically with your brand, unless they have pedigree at a known name or a brand that's like early stage DTC, like a Bonobos or Warby Parker. That's why you see a lot of alumni there going on to do things of their own. How do we solve that? Is there a future where ShipBob can credentialize operations professionals and help? How do we scale that and meet that problem, which I feel like is one that we're all going to have to solve pretty soon.
I agree. It's something that it's something we've already been investing in for a while, where we have success managers that are employed by ShipBob, and sure, they work with some of our largest merchants, and we don't charge them anything for that. And so they are getting access to that. How do we expand that beyond, ShipBob? That's something that we're looking into, and we'll probably launch something in Q4 at the latest around that. Because with marketers, they talk about themselves a lot more, and it's easier. And so I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's easier to find who they are. Also, I think it's something easier to understand. And as a founder, you're like, okay, can you improve my return on ad spend by X, or give me some examples of how you've been able to, scale certain channels or market across different channels. And it's just more of like a known entity. And again, it's maybe somewhat-ish easier to solve, and people talk about it a lot more. And it's often something where you can drive impact very quickly. Whereas again, it's going to take a while, but we will see the shift where people are like, okay, I need to improve my bottom line. If that's not a marketing problem right now, what it is actually like a logistics or operations problem. And so how can I bring in somebody that can help me understand how we should manufacture, how we should manage our just in time, or what we order, and how should we distribute it, and who should we use for direct to consumer, or who should we use for B2B, or who should we use for both, and which channels should we sell through? And we are seeing these people as direct to consumer and just e-commerce continues to evolve that have worked at a lot of companies that have scaled well. This other woman I was talking to recently, she just got poached, which I was pretty surprised, to now the third e-commerce brand she's worked for. And she understands operations, especially D2C, like extremely well. And she was the person who I alluded to earlier. She was their first hire. And it was these two experienced women who launched the brand. And they knew that was going to be their, just paramount to their success. And so they went out and tried to find the best person they could for that role. And I think we're just going to see more of that. And again, it's going to be tough. People will make some of the bad hires just like they will for any role.
Yep.
But people will start seeing, okay, well, it's not just top of funnel. How can I improve like the throughput and the customer experience? And that brings people back again. And so what does that look like in the next year? I don't know, but we're definitely going to see, I think, a lot more discussion over there.
Wanted to get your take on something. We're seeing, as brands grow up, and they have, and their needs around fulfillment grow. I think it's pretty safe to say, like you mentioned before, getting to 2-day for most, cover most of your customers with 2-day requires multi-source inventory. Like it requires fulfilling from multiple places. But it seems like there isn't an e-commerce platform that I'm aware of that sort of supports that as a default use case. It's usually some additional level of effort to go to support that. And I might be speaking from some ignorance here, but it seems to be a challenge that we're constantly having to overcome. Magento purports to do something out of the box. Shopify has a solution. Neither of those are ones that that we actually reach for over at RightPoint, where I spend my days toiling away. So I'm curious what your take is on do e-commerce platforms actually like serve the needs of these growing businesses who actually have some complexity around logistics? And if not, is that why ShipBob exists? I mean, like there's just too much.
What do you guys use?
Variability as far as what?
For handling multi-location inventory?
It's such an interesting question. It can be incredibly custom depending on the need. So if not to name drop a bunch of clients, but L'Oreal and Nestle and Rite Aid all have very different use cases for the way that they employ and for their sub brands, right? So the way that they employ, Rite Aid has BOPUS, and that's a whole that's its own challenge to meet. There's POS integration, there's in car delivery, there's delivery to home, and so they have a very complex way of realizing inventory both at the DC level and in the store level. Exposing all of that to the end customer is kind of a magic trick. Like we make it look easy and it's insanely complex. There's nothing out of the box that provides for that experience. Like, but the easiest use case would be, okay, I fulfill out of 2 DCs. We work for a subsidiary of Nestle, Garden of Life, and they have a few DCs on hand, right? That they'll fulfill out of. Even then, right? It's there's rules. Some stuff ships cold. Some stuff ships, depending on threshold. So I'm sorry, I'm giving you a whole. You're now my therapist, but that's it. It doesn't seem that out of the box any e-commerce platform or like an experience platform really provides for the thing that you would assume is now like the growing use case for growing brands, right? Like, yeah, seems to be a challenge.
I agree. That's like, I'd say the beauty of our industry, at least from like the software perspective, is that's what opens up so much opportunity for complementary solutions, but it also makes it a pain at times because now you're managing, multiple solutions and hopefully they're all tying in together well so that you have like a unified data set. You look at, there's of course, NetSuite, there's a bunch of players like, I'd say lower in the space. There's Skubana who was acquired. There's Stitch Labs who was acquired. There's Bright Pearl. There's Sin7, who's actually going the opposite direction of getting acquired. And well, actually, I don't know if they are positioning for or not for that, but they've acquired a handful of companies to expand the solutions that they offer. And then there's people like us that we integrate with all of them, but also we want to make it so you have you really only need one solution to tie into your platform. And it's just, you touched on it briefly, but it highlights the complexity with e-commerce across the board. There's so many edge cases, and these brands are always trying to not purposely, but break the way that things are done so that they have some level of competitive advantage. So whether it be you need things that have temp control, or items that are frozen, or buy online, pick up on store. Just some things have certain batteries, or there's hazmat. There's even with all of the people didn't realize, even with all the hand sanitizers, some of those fell into just different hazmat classifications. And again, with B2B, are you selling through, Walmart, or are you selling through, we had a customer that we were talking to for a bit, and they sold across 1,000 different golf pro shops. And those are both called B2B, but those are wildly different. And so, because let's say with Walmart, you ship to one or two distribution centers with all of these pro shops, maybe you're sending it to all 1,000 pro shops. That's a much different ask. And so, that's the opportunity for all these solutions to offer, something for these brands to handle that, because again, I don't see these brands getting less sophisticated.
I feel like that's where sort of platforms hit this bell curve of whatever the product team was working on 5 years ago, is what is available now. And that's my concern, is that at least in our industry, the thing that is currently being built is extra platform. It happens outside of what the core capability of the platform is. If you were building for what the platform's capable of, you're building for the experience of a few years ago. You're not building for the experience of today.
I'd argue against that, just because, I know how we approach it at ShipBob, and we talk to our customers a lot, and we are trying to place bets in things we know that are necessary today, but also how can we carve off some time so we can make some bets for the future? And again, you're not always right. That's part of our job. But then also on the platform side, you look at a company like Ecommerce, where they've stayed very focused on, it sounds very buzzwordy, but I think it's going to put them in a good position, which is open SaaS. And so how can they continue to invest, and similar to what we're doing at ShipBob, how can they invest so heavily in their API that all these other solutions that, like you said, are maybe building for the future? Because BigCommerce, just like Shopify and others, they can't build for the future across every single use case. But what they can do is they can continue to invest in deepening and expanding all the different endpoints that they have for all of their data sets or data points. And so that you can leverage that, again, in a unified way across all these different solutions. And so whatever, there's the next Skubana or Bright Pearl, or there's the next fill in the blank solution, whatever it may be. And you can still use that data in, whoever is actually seeing the future, like you stated.
Yeah, that's my my concern, and sort of the shorthand there is that when you're in e-commerce, you're typically you have to build. And it's that's why I feel like no and low code solutions are they cover 80%. They cover the 80-20. They cover 80%, but the other 20% is where you're going to spend 80% of your time is trying to architect for the edge cases that aren't covered by what broad platforms are, and there are so many more of them. That's the other concern I have too. I don't know what your take is here, but because it requires so many point solutions nowadays, and you mentioned a few offhand, there's in a given store, there's 20, 30 integrations, depending on how you want to count it. That becomes margin erosive over time too, right? And operating that's not just, it's not just technical complexity or operational complexity. It's also margin complexity. in effect some sort of a tax. And I'm, I don't know how, I don't see that getting any easier over time. Anyway, just waxing poetic, I guess.
I agree. It is like the SaaS tax and the app tax. Like, what is it costing you for all this? But maybe at times it's also to view it, whatever, glass half full. Like, it's this forcing mechanism where you're like, wait, I'm spending, $3,000 a month in all these like supporting apps. Like, what do I really need?
That's right.
And so going through and cleaning it up, because you can't chase every shiny penny. And because, that guy or girl on Twitter said, hey, this app has changed my life. Like, do you really need it? Or should you continue to focus on what's actually driving your sales? And so I am with you. I don't know how that will play out, because people will continue to build some very interesting solutions for things people like others haven't thought of. But you can't have 50 apps running your store, because then you get into the situation like so many of us that run websites on WordPress, where now you have to update all these apps, and now half of them don't talk to each other. And, one of them was built somewhat maliciously. And so now they start like doing weird stuff to your website. And so again, we'll see what happens there, because WordPress hasn't been able to fix that either. Again, they're a different business than a lot of the platforms, because, they're more in the open source-ish vein. But, so I don't know. I guess we don't have history to look at.
No, but I do think, history does sort of rhyme a little bit, right? There's likely a coming, again, and not to, again, we're called future commerce. So I'm thinking about what's next. And in my mind, when you see Shopify open its developer program to sort of subsidize the first million in revenue, for which we've written quite a bit about, but it was an announcement that was made at Shopify Unite around rev share for the first million for all of its app developers. They're going to allow you to operate up to the first million with no Shopify tax. Basically, like, they're not taking money away from you, which I think it used to be 20%. This is great, right? Like, at the same time, I think it also is a different way of a company like Shopify or any platform to subsidize research and development, because all platforms, it's sort of a law, all platforms eventually compete with their partner ecosystem. Like, when you have a critical mass of folks looking for a specific solution, at some point, someone rightfully asks the question, why can't I just do subscriptions in Shopify? Why do I have to have 4 apps that manage that? Why do I have to have an app that manages churn? Why do I have to have an app that manages the payment? And why do I have to have one that, helps me with dunning? And why do it does become complex in its own right, where the platform should actually have a unified, opinionated solution for this, emergent use case that everybody seems to want. There's an agglomeration that I think that happens over time as well, whether in feature set or in actual M&A, where they, go out, or a partnership where, Shopify has knighted a firm in the BNPL space to say, oh, we're going to choose a player here.
I think the partnership thing you called out with a firm is maybe something more to keep an eye on, because I agree, like, it makes sense. And sometimes, especially from the outside, you might be like, why don't they just build X in-house?
Sure.
I think Shopify, like Salesforce, has done a great job of fostering this app ecosystem. And I'd say this past Unite, more so than any other, where they really did put their money where their mouth is. And we're like, okay, we want to open this up and allow more people to build in. And you're right, like, it's not purely like altruistic. Like, it is R&D for them. It helps make their platform stickier. But also, if a company is focused solely on churn, or focused solely on subscription, or focused solely, like with us, on fulfillment, like from the CEO on down, that's all the company is thinking about. And so you think of, like you mentioned earlier, building for the future. That's where people are looking for that innovation and trying to get ahead, where like one platform can't think about the future everywhere. And like, there's only so many developers that you can have at one company. I mean, Google's done a good job of hiring a lot, but whatever, that's a whole nother conversation. And so, you can't solve and see everything. And so that's where these just opening up the platform like Shopify and BigCommerce have done, or these partnership opportunities. I thought, Affirm eventually what they did with Shopify got a little bit more press, but that was pretty interesting where they were kind of donned the winner in the space for that. But there are still others. And even Apple threw their hat in the ring last week with buy now, pay later.
Yeah.
And so again, these companies aren't just going to roll over when these big announcements are made. So, and that's what will continue to push the innovation.
This is my roundabout way of getting around to trying to talk about Shopify Fulfillment Network and how you see that panning out in the space.
So that's a question. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, we work with thousands of Shopify brands. We're their only global Shopify Plus fulfillment partner. We work very closely with them. We met with them last week. And so I know that we're going to continue to invest heavily in our partnership and integration with Shopify as we do with others. And, we're long on the space like they are. And so what that means with their fulfillment networks, TBD, but it's not a pure software problem either. And so you can't just onboard a million companies overnight. It takes a bit of time. And so we'll see. But right now, things are going well. We're working very closely with them.
Nice. Comms training coming in handy.
It's the truth also. I mean, again, you can see where we've invested and we are,
for sure,
number one app for fulfillment and they're only Shopify Plus certified partner. And so there we go. ShipBob.com. Here's my comms training.
I love it. What haven't we talked about that we should be talking about? What's happening for holiday? And I'll give you the last word here. But what's happening for holiday? I'm sure you see more than anyone. Sort of the leading indicators based on the way people are stocking up and planning. Planning resourcing. So, what can we expect?
Stock up. I mean, again, you've got to balance your cash flow, but from talking to some of our partners like Freightos and others, I don't see these port congestion issues and supply chain issues throughout the world easing up this year. And they've already started having some, I forget what it's called exactly, but kind of like the child stimulus checks hitting people's banks last week. And hopefully those get spent on the right things. But there's going to be and also just different variants of COVID, and just in general, regardless of all that, not that we want to rehash COVID, there's e-commerce is going to continue to grow. Won't necessarily have the step function jump like it did last year, but just prepare for a big Q4 like always. And also get creative on how you can get ahead of it, because Walmart, Target, others announced that they're not going to be open for, I don't think they're going to be open on Thanksgiving. And so just as these brands get creative and move, it went from Black Friday to Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Then there was Cyber 5. So it's a 5-day sprint. It's now Q4. Q4 is the crazy sprint. And so I'd start getting prepared earlier and ignore the millions of blog posts on what to do. Just, what to do with your business.
Yeah. Definitely more so than anything I could possibly write on at futurecommerce.fm. Casey, you're a mensch. This is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you for listening. Hey, you know where you can find other great content. You can find it at Future Commerce. Go sign up and subscribe so you never miss another great interview like this one I just had with Casey. I'm going to pat myself on the back. That was a pretty good one. But if there's something I missed and you want to tell me about it, and I know you will, drop us a line at hello@futurecommerce.fm. Remember, hey, we can change the future because why? Because we control commerce, right? We commerce touches everybody, and we have the power to make the future what we want it to be. Thanks for listening to Future Commerce.